Hey everyone, welcome back to Reissued. If you're new here, my name is Andrew. If you're not new here, you know that I love to collect beautiful items in my home. Books, lamps, sculptures, all kinds of things. And so today I am so excited that we are finally going to be styling the new built-ins in my living room with a beautiful collection of items that I mostly found at the thrift store. Now, I'm especially excited for this video for a couple of reasons. First, I've been collecting things for these built-ins for years, and so it's all hanging around my house. So today we're gonna be getting these things up off the floor, out of boxes, off tabletops, all around my house, and getting them up in place on the built-ins. I'm also excited because this kind of dark academia, maximalist, trinket, putting crap everywhere kind of aesthetic is really hot right now, apparently, for those of us that are following trends. So I'm gonna be sharing 10 tips and tricks that I'm thinking about when I'm styling these built-ins that you could incorporate into any kind of built-in styling or bookcase styling in your space. I can't wait to take you along for the process. Let's style these built-ins. Okay, so we're here in the very echoey living room, and before we jump into styling here, just a reminder that we are doing a giveaway here on the channel of a virtual room makeover. You're sending me your problem spaces with some inspiration images, some thrifted finds that you want to incorporate. I have all the details about how to enter down below, and I'm gonna be compiling a design for you and sharing that in a future video. It's gonna be super fun, so go ahead and enter down below. All right, so turning our attention to styling here, in the living room, I wanted kind of a moody library, dark academia kind of aesthetic, and so these built-ins are going to be a big part of that. Tip number one, if you're DIYing your own built-ins or you want to paint a bookcase, set the stage right for your styling. So here on my built-ins, I've gone with the shade Storm Chaser, which is kind of a mid-tone blue, gray, green kind of shade. And one of the reasons that I went with this color is that it is a mid-tone. It's not super dark, it's not super light. So as I go in with a variety of different items, a black piece will show up on this color, but also white will pop off of this color as well, right? If you don't have the ability to customize the color of your bookcases, think about styling the bookcases with something that will pop off that finish. For instance, in my bedroom, I love the dark wood bookcases in there, and so I've gone with a lot of pieces with a lighter tone that will show up a little bit better on that dark color. And final thought here about setting the stage is lighting. I've mentioned on my channel before, most of the time when you see built-ins in magazines, they'll have some sort of built-in lighting with sconces or something that's coming up over the top. I always question how it actually looks with those lights turned on. Something tells me it would feel a little bit harsh. So in my space, I've opted to go with a variety of lamps placed up on the shelves. If you don't have the ability to run wiring, you could do these with battery operated lamps with remote. We ran a bunch of plugs in the built-ins here, so we're gonna be plugging everything in and using smart bulbs to control them. I just think that having a variety of different lamps here is gonna offer the more eclectic feeling that I'm going for and fill the space with a really warm light as opposed to anything that's too harsh or directed. And then I'm also planning to use a couple of picture lights to highlight a few specific pieces. Which brings me into tip number two, place the functional items first. So a couple days ago, my mom and I came in here and we started placing lamps in the space, so I'm putting those back now. I also have a record player and speakers that are going in here. We ran the wire yesterday up and over the top. It was very difficult and took forever, but it all does work now. I have my sound system in here, which is very exciting. I'm treating this whole styling thing as a process of elimination. So we want to start with the things that we know we have to put in one area first. So we're distributing the lighting here. We're placing the speakers at the same level symmetrically on both sides for good sound. We're placing the record player and the records over on the right side here where we did that custom storage for the records. So we're starting with the must-have things first and then working backwards from there. All right, tip number three is what I call building a living mood board. So I have a lot of items that I've acquired for this space, and so I put a lot of them together kind of in one area to get a sense of how they're all gonna work together, and also which items might look good kind of put next to each other. I find this helpful anytime I'm putting a room together to get a sense of what the vibe of the room is gonna be and how to acquire more items that work with that vibe and not end up with a bunch of stuff that feels like it doesn't end up in the same world. Now, most of these items are things that I've thrifted. Most of them I've talked about in a thrift with me video or a thrift haul video. So if you want to know more about each individual item, I will link a couple of those videos below so you can see where I got them and how much I paid for them. But there are a couple specific items that I haven't talked about here before, so let me show you those. Okay, so first up, Matt bought me these built-ins at an antique store in Fayetteville that we went to recently. These were $40, but I believe they were 20% off. It's a lot more than I would usually spend for an item like this, but I thought these were super unique. They're a light, but they're a really warm color that I think is gonna tie in some colors that we have in the room. So I absolutely love these. Matt got me this tall wood piece as well, but this one was at the REISSUED. I think it was like $1 or $2, something crazy. It is broken on one point, and that little piece on the top was broken off, but we glued it back on, and we're gonna put the other broken part in the back. So no worries there. I just love the sculptural nature of this. This little pair of statues I've had for so long, I can't even remember if I've mentioned it in a video. I think this was one of my first purchases when I started working at the REISSUED 3 years ago, so I've had these on hand for a while. I do remember that they were $2 each, which is incredible for the look and the quality. I believe these are actual ivory, and they're beautiful. These little bookends I've had, I think, since I was in college, so I probably got them around like 2011, 2012. I think they came from like IKEA or Target or something kind of basic, but I think the shape is super cool and sculptural, kind of art deco. This trio of candlesticks I got with Matt at Last Chance Thrift. This was the first time that we went there and I picked these up. I think they were $2 a piece. Kind of basic, but I picked them up for the warm reddish orange color that they have, since I think that will pop off the blue of the built-ins. And final item that I want to mention here is this beautiful coffee table book that my friend Julia got for me probably over 10 years ago. I haven't had a good place to display this ever, and so I'm so excited to be able to display this a little bit better. This really came at the time that I was first falling in love with McQueen, and it has really beautiful imagery of all of the shows, and I just found this so inspiring, so I think it's gonna look beautiful in this room. Okay, so now that we have our key functional items in place and we have our living mood board to pull from, let's start putting some stuff up on the shelves. So as I'm getting started here, I'm immediately thinking about tip number 4, which is to group like items together. We do want to mix things up a bit and keep it interesting, but having too much of a mix up can feel really chaotic. This was one of the things that I learned in retail working at the REISSUED. Whenever you have a wall full of crazy items that don't go together, grouping like items together can create a sense of order and balance, and also create variations in rhythm that are really aesthetically pleasing. This can also be a helpful strategy when doing a full wall of built-ins like I am. I'm thinking about some shelves and sections having more books, others being more art focused or sculpture focused. Creating those larger zones I think is going to work better on this scale. If we had books and a sculpture on every single shelf, that would just feel like a lot. One of the great things about using the thrifted IKEA Hemnes units as a base for our bookcases is that we have lots of adjustable shelves to play with. That way I can put shelves in place that will hug the items and make it feel really purposeful. But keep in mind, if you're doing adjustable shelves, that you probably want them to all be at exactly the same height across the whole wall, or you want to create variations in height so that you don't have all of them spaced evenly except for one or something weird like that. The center shelf on all of these units is permanent since it was part of the structure of how these bookcases were put together. So in order to break that up, I'm going to place a piece of art right across it just to create a little bit more variation and not have that solid line go all the way across. Since my bookcases are asymmetrical and since we're going for kind of a disordered library feel, I'm paying special attention to change up the height of the shelves to add to that story that I'm trying to tell. I'm also breaking up the sameness of the shelves by adding one angled shelf. This is a tip that I took from my grandma's built-ins, not in the video that I showed you, but they actually used to be this way. She had one angled shelf in her built-ins where she would display these beautiful vintage Life magazines. And so when I found these great works of arts books at the thrift store the other weekend, I really felt like I wanted to display them like this on an angle to be able to see the fronts of the books, which are the most beautiful part. So my parents jumped in here to save the day again by putting together this shelf. Basically, my dad nailed on an oak piece along the front of the bottom shelf to act as a ledge, and then he cut down a kind of trapezoid shape at the back with the angle that we wanted on the front, drilled a hole so that we could insert one of the pegs that would fit into our shelf pegs as well. That way these can sit in place and then the shelf can rest against them and display our beautiful books. right, I think this feels like a good stopping point for the day. There's so many options, so many things to consider. It's enough to keep me up all night. Luckily, winding down is easier than ever with Oslo, which is the sponsor of today's video. I've been incorporating Oslo sleep buds into my sleep routine to help me tune out the stress and the creative thought cycles and fall into a state of calm and restfulness. These sleep buds can play your favorite music or podcast, or you can choose from one of the many sleep sounds that come with the Oslo app. I've been listening to Summer Nights a lot lately, which transports me to a breezy summer evening in a hammock without the bugs. Whether it's a beautiful beach or a cozy train car, visualizing sleep as a physical place has been helpful for me to wind down, and Oslo always helps me get there. Their sleep buds are super soft and flexible, and they stay in place even when you're sleeping on your side. And when you're ready to wake up, you can set a personal in-ear alarm to get you up without disturbing your partner. So right now, click the link in the description or scan the code on screen to get your pair of Oslo sleep buds and use my code for $10 off your first pair. Thank you so much to Oslo for sponsoring this video, and let the wind down commence. All right, we are back for day 2. Unplanned tip here, I guess we'll call this 5B. Don't get overwhelmed. I'm giving that tip to myself here. This wall is super huge, and this scale is so much more than what I'm used to styling personally. So this is gonna take some time, and we're gonna have to try a bunch of things and just see what happens and trust the process. So let's get to it. So right away, I'm really happy with some of the things that I placed yesterday, but some things are definitely gonna have to continue to move around, but that's totally okay. As we start to get more of a picture of the general layout overall, we can kind of zoom in a bit and think about each shelf individually. So tip number 6 here, I'm calling variation and vibes. On every shelf, I'm thinking about varying heights. I'm thinking about trying to have at least one item that goes all the way to the top of each shelf to make it feel really full. Sometimes that means propping some books underneath to get a little bit more height going. I also am thinking about variation in terms of the style of the item. I have some things that are very specifically Asian inspired, or very ornate and carved, or very sleek and modern. And so I want to play around with juxtaposition here and putting items together that really don't feel like they should go together, and finding some tension there that's really interesting. However, I'm also considering the kind of vibe of the items as I'm grouping them together. And so I'm thinking about each little vignette telling a story and coming together with some sort of cohesive through line. Another unofficial tip here, a lot of people when styling will say that you want to do things in 1s, 3s, and 5s, that odd numbers look better. I really like a pair. I always end up with a lot of things in pairs, either because I thrifted them that way or because they're bookends that came as a pair. I just think don't be afraid of a pair. Doesn't have to be an odd number. Now, as I continue styling here, and as I say a lot of these things out loud, I realize that they can be kind of contradictory and very subjective. So the real truth is here, even though I'm keeping a lot of different things in mind, the only way to know is to try. Put some stuff up on the shelf, see how it looks there, move it around. It takes a while to find the right location, and you can't think your way into that. You just gotta try it. So don't be afraid to make a mistake, just get started and see how it looks. Again, some of the items that I placed in the beginning that I was very sure were gonna go in a specific place ended up going to a totally different place and looking way better when everything came together. So you gotta stay flexible here. Tip number 8 here, as I'm starting to find the right locations for items, I'm starting to think about hiding the ugly stuff. We have some cords all around in the back. I have a lot of wide open back space on these shelves. So I'm trying to fill in here with some larger artwork, strategically place some pieces to cover up some of those cords and plugs and things. This is really important to keep things from looking overly messy since we have a lot going on here already. One of the most satisfying moments of the day, I was looking for an art piece to go along the back of this shelf to kind of break it up, and this piece ended up fitting perfectly. I found this with Matt at the REISSUED a couple weeks ago for $5. I was gonna hang this over the door in my pantry, but the wire on the back was all busted up, so this fit in here so perfectly and looks so custom, and I love it. Alright everybody, this took way longer today than I expected it would. It took about 5 hours to get everything placed in the right way. I had my parents helping me here to put things together and to get another set of eyes on this. So this is a pretty intense process, even more than I was expecting. I have a couple more projects that I want to wrap up here tomorrow, but tip number 9 is that this is gonna be an ongoing process. Yes, I want to make it look good for a video, and yes, if you're styling it for guests or photographs or whatever, you want to make it look somewhat finished, but I want to fill my house with items that I really enjoy and that I love to have on hand, and that will continue to change over time, and that's okay. So not everything has to be set in stone and perfect. We're gonna go with it as it is. That being said, one of my main takeaways here is that I feel very justified in being a hoarder. As I mentioned, I've been collecting items for these shelves for years, and I had so much stuff on hand. The majority of stuff we ended up putting up here on the shelves, and there were just a couple items that we didn't end up using, but it was good to have different options, because if I was limited on my selection, then I wouldn't be able to really achieve the look I was going for. So yeah, I feel very validated in having hoarded stuff for so long, but also I feel like my house is clearing out. Like, so many shelves are empty now and there's crap up off the floor, so this is all very cleansing and very exciting. All right, day 3, we are back and we are almost done here. My final thing here, tip number 10, is to make it personal. So you know I couldn't do this without a little DIY crafting moment here. So I have a couple little projects that I think are gonna bring everything together and wrap this up. First up, I really like how this little glass cloche looked on one of the shelves, but it's looking kind of empty. And so I think I'm gonna put some of those mushroom things that I got at the movie prop warehouse sale. I'm gonna keep this super simple. I'm using this lamp base that came off one of the lamps that I used for my DIY lamp part Christmas tree last year. This has been hanging around my house. I don't know what to do with it, so glad to be getting some use out of it here. Floral foam would be so much better for this, but I don't have any on hand, so I'm using a little bit of styrofoam that came out of the packaging for my speakers. And then basically I'm just gonna cut these down and stab them in until I achieve a nice shape to go under the cloche. Next up, I have this little depression glass bowl that needs something inside it, so I'm gonna use some leftover moss. This was moss that Matt preserved. I used it last year for my Halloween video, and I have just little pieces left, so I'm gonna see if I can put something together here. I'm building a base with this brown paper bubble mailer that came from Amazon. I'm taping it to the bottom with painter's tape because I don't wanna permanently affix anything to this dish because I'm not sure how committed to this piece I'm gonna be. I'm gluing in some bark that I found outside and then placing a bunch of moss around here, gluing some of it, but mostly just sticking it in there, so if I want to use it for something else, I can. I am not 100% in love with this, but I think it will do the job well enough to provide a little bit of greenery and to add a little bit of something up on top of this Asian altar looking thing that needs something beautiful on top of it. And finally, you may have noticed the beautiful gold frame that I hung up on the front of the shelves that I found at the REISSUED store has a little photograph in it. It's actually quite beautiful, but it's hanging the wrong way, and it's not really the look that I'm going for. So I'm gonna draw up a little sketch to see if I can get more of the look that I'm wanting here. So I pull out some drawing paper and some charcoal that I've had since I was in high school and got to drawing. I'm trying 2 different reference photos. Both of these are sculptures that I took photos of last year when we were in Italy. One was in the airport, so it was behind glass, and the other was this beautiful giant bronze sculpture, I think, that was out by the water. So at that time, I took lots of photos from different angles because I was feeling really inspired by those, and so I'm super happy to finally be doing something with those. After drawing for a little bit, I felt like the bronze angel was a lot more promising, both in the actual image and also in my execution of it, so I pushed all my efforts toward that. I really like the high contrast this is going to provide, just to have something that's a little bit more punchy in the frame. I love that this subject feels very classical in nature, but also kind of abstract at the same time. Do I feel like a bit of an imposter putting my 30-minute sketch next to some really iconic, beautiful pieces of art? Yes, but I also am really proud of how this turned out, so we're gonna go with it. Alright everybody, I am very excited to be finally revealing the full image of built-ins here. We have been on quite a journey here with the built-ins, doing the cabinet and the bookcase install, coming in last week to do that super secret hidden storage at the top, and now bringing the full vision to life by populating it with all of these beautiful items and creating the full look. I'm so excited to share that with you. We are not quite done here. There are a couple of things that are unfinished. There's some loose wires kind of hanging around. I also have a couple of frames. These were thrifted frames that I really loved that I wanted to incorporate, but they either have stock imagery in them or they're blank right now. So in the future, I'm planning to do a video about how to incorporate personal photographs into your space. Also, I've been using a ladder and a step stool throughout this video, but I am gonna have a library ladder on this wall. It actually got delivered last week. We unboxed it to make sure all the parts were there, and I just snapped a quick photo for my story on Instagram. We are gonna finish stripping the trim and painting the walls and painting the floor before that's installed, so stay tuned for that coming up soon. If you wanna see how this room progresses, we are approaching the finish line here, so be sure that you're subscribed so that you don't miss that completed reveal. As usual, if you like this video or found some of these tips helpful to you, be sure to hit the like button. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you guys soon. Bye.